Welcome to Old Man Sports Talk. I'm your host, Old Man Nate, and today's show is going to be on how Shadeur Sanders sabotaged his own draft. That's right. The hot topic right now is everybody blaming the NFL for what happened in the NFL draft to the Sanders family. And I got some news for you. It's their own fault. And we're going to break it down. We're going to talk to you about how exactly what happened. So, and first of all, one you got to remember one reason that this is bringing so much attention is 2 years ago when Deion Sanders took the Colorado job. Colorado instantly got about 5 million new fans instantly. So Colorado has been a a, a school is heavily followed by a bunch of Deion Sanders fans, and that's fine. But of course, they don't want nothing, no negativity out there towards the Sanders family. So we're going to show you though exactly what happened and why Shadeur Sanders fell all the way to the fifth round. All right. Now, first of all, I want everybody to realize there's 32 teams in the NFL. But there's not 32 teams that need a quarterback within the next few years, within the next, 2 or 3 years. All right. And we're going to go through that really quick. So look at Buffalo. Buffalo got Josh Allen. They ain't trying to draft nobody in the first 3 rounds. When you're trying to draft in the first 3 rounds, you're looking for your quarterback either this year or in the next couple of years. You're not drafting a quarterback in the top 3 rounds if he's going to play for you in 5 years. You'll just wait. All right. So Miami, they got Tua. Now, Tua is just one hit away from them needing a new quarterback, but still, he's your guy. So you're not going to draft somebody in the top 3 or 4 rounds saying, hey, here's your replacement. When that hit comes, we got somebody. They're not going to do that. They did end up drafting Quinn Ewers in the seventh round. So they've got somebody, and they've got people on the roster already, but they were not looking to replace Tua. The Jets just picked up Justin Fields, and Justin Fields played good for Pittsburgh last year before he got benched as Russell Wilson got healthy and they replaced him. I think Justin Fields could be a Jet for 3 or 4 years. Jets seems to be like, where quarterbacks go to die. But you got to remember, Aaron Rodgers was old. He wasn't, and he had first or within the first drive or second drive of the season, his first year there, ruptured his Achilles and he was done for the year. So that's just bad luck. Wilson, not Russell Wilson, but Wilson from BYU, who they drafted, he had head problems. So, yeah, I think Justin Fields could be the guy who gets the Jets back to the playoffs, and he could be there for a few years. New England. New England's got Drake May. They just drafted him last year, and they brought him in late in the season, and he looked pretty decent. So they're not going to bring in another guy right now to be their starter. They're going to see what he does this year. Now, maybe next year they draft a quarterback. But this year, no, they weren't going to do that. Baltimore. Baltimore's got Lamar Jackson. They're not drafting nobody to replace Lamar. Pittsburgh. Now, Pittsburgh's an interesting one, okay? They really don't have a quarterback on their roster right now that you feel comfortable being the future. Okay, they got Mason Rudolph, who is probably going to be the starter as of right now. If the game week 1 was tomorrow, Mason Rudolph would probably be the starter. He's been a career backup, and then when he has played, he's looked decent. But he is not who you want the future to be. Pittsburgh ended up drafting Will Howard in the 6th round, okay, or 6th or 7th round. one of those. So they did get another guy who they could bring in. Now, why didn't they do Shadeur Sanders? We'll get to that in a minute. Okay. There is some hope though that they will get a free agent such as Aaron Rodgers, and there's even been some talk about Atlanta releasing Kirk Cousins, and then Kirk Cousins possibly going to Pittsburgh. Okay. So, but that's not why they didn't draft Shadeur Sanders. Well, again, we'll get to that in a minute. Okay. Cincinnati's got Joe Burrow. So they're not looking for nobody. Cleveland. Cleveland is who ended up drafting Shadeur Sanders. Okay. And Cleveland's messed up, and they got 5 quarterbacks on the roster, and it's musical chairs on who's going to be the starter right now. They've got Joe Flacco, the old veteran who's looked pretty good. I think he even retired once and came back out. All right, and called back in to play. Kenny Pickett, who spent 3 years at Pittsburgh, and they let him go. And then, of course, they've got Deshaun Watson, who re-ruptured his Achilles tendon. He's going to be out again already for the entire season. Okay. And then they drafted 2 quarterbacks in Dylan Gabriel and Shadeur Sanders. Again, we'll get more into that in a little bit. Okay. But Cleveland is not a bad place for Shadeur. Okay. Houston, they got CJ Stroud. They're not looking for a quarterback. Indianapolis is interesting. I could have seen them trying to pick him up, but at the same time, I know how they weren't looking for a quarterback. Okay, they got Daniel Jones, not a great quarterback, and they got Anthony Richardson, who I thought when they drafted him was a horrible pick. He's a great runner. You can play him at running back, but he's not a very good passer. He's an okay. He got an arm, got a heck of a talented arm, but he is not very accurate a lot of times. So, and then they end up drafting in the 7th round. They drafted Riley Leonard. So they were okay with drafting somebody way late. They weren't looking to, again, they're not looking for a starter right this season or within the next couple of years. They feel like they've already got what they need right now. Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence. They're not looking for nobody. Tennessee, Will Levis. And then they had the number 1 overall pick, and they took a quarterback. They took Cam Ward, who was by far head and shoulders the number 1 quarterback in this draft. So there's that right there. Kansas City, they got Patrick Mahomes. They're not drafting no quarterback. Chargers, they got Herbert. They're not drafting no quarterback. Denver, they got Bo Nix, who last year looked great as a rookie. He was a rookie finalist. I don't think he got rookie of the year, but he was a finalist. So they ain't looking for no quarterback. Raiders is another interesting one. They got a new coach in Pete Carroll, and he brought over his former quarterback and Geno Smith. Now, the Raiders, I do think, could have looked for they do got a roster full of quarterbacks, but nobody really to stand out. And I believe they drafted a quarterback late in the 7th round or 6th round also. So, but they weren't really looking, again, for a star. Geno Smith is their guy. Okay. So in the AFC, there was really 3. You can go ahead and throw the Raiders in there, and I'll tell you why in a second. But there was really only 3 teams that was looking for quarterback: Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Tennessee. Again, Tennessee took a quarterback, number 1 overall. Okay. Cleveland, they ended up getting Shadeur Sanders. And then Pittsburgh, I don't know what's going on over there. They easily could have drafted him in the top 3 rounds. I don't know why they didn't. Okay. But we're going to talk about something in a minute. All right. So now let's look at the NFC. Philadelphia, they've got Jalen Hurts. They're not looking for a quarterback. Washington, got Daniels. They're not looking for a quarterback. Dallas, got Dak Prescott. They should be looking for a quarterback, but they're not looking for a quarterback. The Giants. Now, they picked up Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston as free agents. But and they ended up drafting a quarterback in the 1st round in Jackson Dart. Now, we'll talk about why they didn't draft Shadeur Sanders. Okay, so Chicago, they got Caleb Williams. They're not looking for a quarterback. Detroit, they got Goff. They're not looking for a quarterback. Green Bay, they got Jordan Love. They're not looking for a quarterback. Minnesota, here's a very interesting one. Minnesota really does not have a proven quarterback on their roster. They're just trying to see if their quarterback they drafted last year, who is still considered a rookie because he didn't play one snap, he got hurt before the season started, and that's J.J. McCarthy. That's who they're going with. I mean, I guess in a way they feel like they owe it to him, but they could have drafted Shadeur. But at the same time, I see why they didn't. Right? They want to see if what they got is going to work out. And obviously, they probably believe it's something in him. Okay. They did not draft a quarterback. They ended up picking up Minnesota's college team. They ended up picking up their quarterback as a free agent. So, or yeah, it's time to practice squad, whatever that is. Okay. Atlanta, they got right now they got Kirk Cousins still, and they got Michael Penix. Okay. I do believe they're going to end up releasing Kirk Cousins, but Michael Penix was a rookie last year, and he came in and he did pretty good. So they weren't looking for a new starter this year or the next couple of years. They're happy. Carolina, they got Bryce Young and Andy Dalton. Now, Andy Dalton's your veteran guy. If they didn't have anybody else, if he was a starter, I could definitely see them trying to draft somebody. But Bryce Young, remember that he was drafted, played right away, looked horrible, and his whole rookie season came in last year, started to look horrible. So they turned her over to Andy Dalton, and then they I don't know exactly what they did with Bryce Young, but when they gave the reins back to him, he looked 100% better. So they feel like he's their guy now. He learned from that bench sitting, and he's going to be their guy. So they're not looking for a guy. New Orleans, another interesting one. Now, they've got Derek Carr, but he hurt a lot last year. So obviously, you're trying to find somebody to replace him when he is done. And the quarterbacks that they took over for him didn't look that good last year. And I'm talking about even the rookie they drafted with Spencer Rattler. So they ended up taking Tyler Shaw, and I'm going to be honest with you. That was a wasted pick. All right. I do not see any future for that guy at all. I don't know what they were thinking with him. They ended up taking him, I believe, in the second round. So yeah, that was yeah. Everybody complaining about why he was picked before Shadeur. I get that. But again, we're going to talk about why that pick happened before Shadeur in just a minute. Tampa Bay, they got Baker Mayfield. They're not looking to replace somebody. Now, he is only on, I mean, he's a free agent after this year, but I think that they'll sign, especially if he gets him back to the playoffs, they'll sign him to a big deal. Arizona, they got Kyler Murray and Jacoby Brissett. They didn't even draft a quarterback. They're not looking at nobody else. All right. The Rams, they got Matthew Stafford. They're not looking at nobody else. San Francisco, they got Brock Purdy. They're not looking at nobody else. And Seattle, again, they got Pete Carroll just took over. He brought in, Pete Carroll was at Seattle. They got a new quarterback at Seattle, or new coach at Seattle, and Sam Darnold is now the quarterback at Seattle. They did end up drafting Jalen Milroe, which again, to me that's a question of why he went for Shadeur Sanders. He's a runner. I don't think he's a Jalen Hurts. I think they're trying to think he's a Jalen Hurts. I don't think he's anywhere near a Jalen Hurts. So that's a question mark. Now here's in the NFC, the teams that could have drafted a quarterback or did, and we'll talk about why they didn't draft Shadeur. The Giants, again, they did draft somebody in the first round. They drafted Jackson Dart. Minnesota, they did not draft a quarterback, and they could have. New Orleans, they did draft a quarterback who I don't think is going to be very good, but we'll talk about why they didn't pick Shadeur. And then Seattle, again, did pick a quarterback in Jalen Milroe, and we'll talk about why they picked Jalen over Shadeur. So there was 5 quarterbacks drafted ahead of Shadeur. Cam Ward, then Jackson Dart, Taylor Shaw, Jalen Milroe, and then Dylan Gabriel was picked in the 3rd round by the same team that Shadeur Sanders was picked by, the Cleveland Browns. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how the Shadeur really sabotaged his own draft. We just explained that there's only about 6 teams. Let's see here, 6 or 7 teams that was really looking for a quarterback. Out of 32 teams, only 6 or 7 really needed one. And Shadeur went to the NFL Combine and said, "I'm only interviewing with 3 teams." That took us. Went from 7 teams possible to 3. That's cut him in half right there. Those 3 teams were the New York Giants, the Cleveland Browns, and the Las Vegas Raiders. Those were the only 3 that he interviewed with. So that means Seattle, Pittsburgh, New Orleans, Minnesota, who needed a quarterback, and Tennessee took a quarterback. Okay, they did take the number one quarterback overall. So really, the other, Minnesota, New Orleans, Seattle, and Pittsburgh were all wiped off the board right then. They weren't gonna draft him. And the reason also, besides that, he didn't do anything. He didn't do any physical drills at the combine. He didn't throw, he didn't run, he didn't lift weights. He didn't do anything. The only thing he did at the combine was the interview, and he only interviewed with 3 out of 32 teams. That right there cuts your chances right there in not in half. It cuts it way down. Way down. So, and then in the interview process, the 3 teams that he interviewed for, he didn't do very good on 2 of them, at least. And the Giants handed him a playbook to review the night. They handed it to him the day before his interview. Review it. We're going to ask you some questions about the playbook. He came in there. He didn't know a single play. He didn't even open the book. Now, some people have been saying, well, the Giants weren't going to draft him anyways. They've never drafted a black quarterback. I heard that. Yeah. So you still don't know. You could be the first. All right. They do have black quarterbacks on their roster. I just named them: Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. So you could have been the first black quarterback drafted by the Giants. But you choosing not to even look over the playbook ruled that chance out. And that's why Jackson Dart got drafted in the 1st round instead of Shadeur Sanders. The Las Vegas Raiders on the board, they call it the board, all right? They do a play on the whiteboard, and they draw a play on the whiteboard, and they ask him what he's looking for. They said he bombed that. He didn't understand a lot of the concepts. That right there talks a lot. Now, I've heard he's doing that on purpose to both the Giants and the Raiders, meaning that left 1 team that could draft him. 1 team. If the Cleveland Browns don't draft Shadeur Sanders, it's very likely he doesn't get drafted at all. Nobody is talking about this. Nobody. So they're talking about the Shadeur Sanders, but they're not talking about the right things. They're just talking about how the NFL got conspiracies, and that's not the case at all. Not even close. Shadeur Sanders sabotaged his own draft. Now, why was he drafted after Dylan Gabriel, though? All right. Both of them had really good college careers. All right. Their numbers are about the same. Dylan Gabriel played both years played in tougher conferences than Shadeur Sanders did. Now, I know you're all going to say, well, wait a minute. Dylan Gabriel played at OU when it was in the Big 12. Shadeur Sanders played at Colorado last year, and they were in the Big 12. How's that tougher? Well, because the year that Dylan Gabriel played in the Big 12, OU and Texas were both in there. Okay? When Shadeur played in that year in Colorado, they were in the Pac-12. Pac-12 wasn't very good that year. Okay, so now last year, yeah, the Big 12, OU was in the SEC, Texas was in the SEC, Colorado was in the Big 12, and the Big 12 after OU and Texas left, it was just kind of mediocre, even with the additions. So definitely didn't play against, and it's always had a reputation, no defense, so he didn't play against any defense. All right. Now, um, so yeah, Shadeur sabotaged his own draft by not reading the playbook. He could have been drafted in the first round by the Giants. They took a quarterback in the first round. The Raiders did not draft a quarterback until the 6th round. Okay, they even drafted after Shadeur was even. Okay, so Cleveland, now back to when, yeah, so Cleveland had their eyes on 2 quarterbacks, Dylan Gabriel and Shadeur Sanders. Now, Cleveland interviewed both of them twice. They interviewed them at the NFL Combine, and then they both, for both of them, they met for dinner and talked more. Now, I don't think either of those interviews at any time for either player went bad. I think they both were pretty good, and that's why they had a second interview. But at the end of the day, Cleveland had Dylan Gabriel a little bit higher on their board than Shadeur Sanders. Okay, they're pretty equal players, and so Cleveland had decided we're going to go with Dylan Gabriel. But when it's in the 5th round, they're like, well, wait a minute, let's just go ahead and take him and let him battle it out. Remember, that's not the first time something like this has happened. Remember the back when it was the Washington Redskins, or the Commanders now, back when it was the Washington Redskins, they picked RG3 and then Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins was the second pick. And which one of them is still in the NFL right now? Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins has had a better NFL career. Obviously, RG3 got hurt, had injury prone and ended up getting hurt, and that ruined his career. So, but anyhow, just listen. That's what happened in the Shadeur Sanders case. And then his whole family coming out talking about, like, before the draft. Got to remember, before the draft, a year ago, this time last year, Deion Sanders had said, I'm not letting my sons just go to any team. NFL remembers that stuff. So again, just because they didn't interview doesn't mean they couldn't draft them. Well, those teams remember that. Oh, he said he's not interviewing with us? Okay, we're not going to deal with you. All right? Because obviously you don't want to come to us. So we're not going to deal with it. And so at the end of the day, Shadeur Sanders sabotaged his own draft. The Sanders family, and I'm not just talking about his dad or anybody, it's everybody he surrounds himself with. They are all included in that sabotage. All right. So, anyways, hope you guys enjoy the show. Leave some likes, leave some comments, share it with your friends, and tell me what you think. All right. Am I off my rocker? I don't think so. There's some facts out there on this. Okay. I'm not just talking old man Nate stuff. No, this is real facts on this. So anyhow, and thanks for watching the show, and we'll see you next time right here on Old Man Sports Talk.